take the link. All right,
Hey,
so we're
are we live?
We're live. We'll give it a
Okay.
minute for everyone to hop in because I like to now
Okay.
post this link, and
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That'll give me enough time to watch my RazzleCon music video again.
Ooh, yeah, RazzleCon. If anyone isn't aware of RazzleCon, you're about to
Don't
be
watch
aware.
it. No, don't watch it.
I actually didn't watch it.
Okay, no.
Dude, every time I go on X, the little thing that gives you like the updates on what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
It's like Fire NATO 2025 globalist dystopian hellscape.
Oh, I'm gonna look at that. I don't usually look at that part. Hold on, I want to see.
Oh my god, it's insane.
Yeah. Oh,
These
yeah.
words, they're literally words real time.
Fire hellscape. I just realized.
What?
I did it again. I signed it on Firefox.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I know what I can do.
Because you're like sympathetic with the fire victims.
No, it's just my default browser.
Okay, I that one's on the record.
I'm gonna do it on here. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm gonna do it on here.
All right.
And then I'm gonna put on my Google browser. It says I'm entering the studio, so I'm gonna leave here. Cool. Take me off of this part and then let me on the other one. Right. Oh, it says it's blocked. What?
I remove you from stage. There we go. What's up, everyone? We'll get started in a minute here. I'm just multitasking, and I'm a man, and so I'm not very good at that. But I want to post this for everybody to easily join in the party, and then great. And then it's going on to email too. Look at us, next level. All right, let's see. Oh shit. Okay, Cam, give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me, Cameron? Give me a thumbs up if you want to come back in. Hey, what's up, Drake?
What's up?
Cameron is switching over to off of Firefox. He's not standing in solidarity. Cam, I just want to ask, you're back on live now. Is it better?
I'm still on Firefox.
Oh shit.
No, it's like on the Chrome, it says I lost my camera access or whatever, so I got to figure that out. So I'll just stay on here while I figure it out.
Okay. Sounds good. No. I'm just sending out the email to everyone. We'll this is kind of like those 2 minutes, where everyone piles in the party.
This is like you got to the party early and they're still setting up the food, and you're like, do you want me to help with anything? Or they're like, they're obviously annoyed that you're there early.
Yeah, my only hang up with X, I like doing the X stuff, aside from they're trying to create a social credit system, and so this is going to be used against us potentially. Is that I can't get a stream link before. It's like once it goes live, then I have to send it, but I'll work.
I think a lot of people have like producers and shit that do all that stuff. So.
Where's our Jamie? We just need one of those AI bots that can be our Jamie. It'd be called
I don't want an AI bot.
J Machine.
You're gonna get one.
No,
it's inevitable,
dude.
No.
For those days where it's really cold and I don't want to have to go get the eggs out of the chicken coop, send out Robo
Chicken Bot.
Well, he's gonna be more than just Chicken Bot. He's gonna be AGI.
Egg GI.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, just get ready, folks.
All right, broadcast is out.
All right, cool.
We got a regular like 6 people who listen to us, and they're probably just on the X profile already in here. So cool. So guys, you made it through the week. Do you guys get directed energy weapon attacks too in your local area?
Every day. They just don't have any effect on me. They can't.
Oh, nice. You got that strong aura.
Exactly. Yeah. Dude, I have so many tabs open on my tabular tab.
Like tabs as in like cool stuff to share on the podcast?
Yeah.
Like,
or tabs as in like the stuff
buying
that
horses again.
You know what, Drake? In the past, I've criticized you for your tabs.
Cam's grandmother.
No, I think I'm just gonna roll with it and embrace who you are.
You should. I literally cannot find the tab for this.
Oh yeah, that's a downside of having too many tabs. You just can't fucking find them.
It's just all X tabs. All right, whatever. I'll figure it
out. Yeah, I'm trying to multitask right now. I'm trying to set my freaking camera settings for. I think I've almost got it though. Here we go. It says
that way we can see what books are on your bookshelf finally. Because right now we can't read them; they're just blurry. Hey,
It's weird. It says
what
it's already
what
got
was I going to say?
backlist.
Hey, I took the bold move, okay, and I just was getting bored of certain iRobot books, and so I jumped to Prelude to Foundation. So I'm going to just go straight into Foundation.
Whoa! Hold on. Okay.
This man's like, I took the bold
This
move
is a sin.
and I got bored of, you know,
If you want to, yeah.
addition and
Those
wanna get my
subtraction.
focus.
Okay, those
I just
detective ones were
jumped
just
right to
taking so
algebra.
long for me. I read one of them and I was like, okay, there were some cool moments in it. I was like, wow, that was pretty clever. But then it was just like, I'm like, wait, how many more of these robot ones? I was like, dude, I'm trying to read Foundation.
Bro, but the robot ones get better.
They're actually better than the Foundation ones.
They
Oh
get
my
better.
god, I'll be the judge of that. I didn't finish Otherlands book 1, Cameron. Okay,
You can't be like on basic algebra and then be like, man, come on, when is this gonna get good? And like, I'm just gonna skip to like Cal 3. Like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna know about different derivatives.
But I'll be entertained. I will probably be entertained though.
Possibly, but you're not
I
gonna
don't
know about. Oh, so
there's gonna be a lot of missing context. That's
Yeah,
all.
well,
I mean,
Elon Musk was saying that Foundation is accurate depiction of our time. So it's like, I didn't want to miss out on that.
I'm this is my dinner conversations with Katie. Well, one part of them. What's the part of the Culture series that's supposed to be the positive version of humanity that Elon Musk is talking about? And then we're like, maybe he just wants to live out that fantasy and doesn't even understand the books at all. And then she tells me she watches interviews with the guy who wrote the books, and it doesn't even seem like he understood the books he wrote.
Damn.
She's like, I think maybe he just like channeled them or something.
Wow.
Damn. Yeah, or he's just like riding the wave of that forever war zeitgeist.
Hey, that's also a book that's on the list
I've
by
heard.
Joe Haldeman.
Yeah. I was more taking that concept and applying it to what I know of the Culture series.
Oh.
So I don't know. Anytime there's a sci-fi book and they're like, we're way in the future and in space, and then there's still war. I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah. Okay.
Well.
So you haven't figured out anything yet. But look at the technology we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude.
So,
Oh man, that's like Ender's Game. Have you read Ender's Game?
No.
Or watched
But I
the
know
movie?
about it.
It's
haven't watched
like
the movie.
it's really similar where they're going off to fight aliens in space, yet they're still having war in the world. So it's like US versus Russia, and like they're even manipulating how people interact with each other here, so that when they come back from fighting aliens, that they can be in control of whichever faction here in the world. It's pretty much like today.
well, yeah.
I mean,
let's just.
I
not
guess
let it
part of the
happen.
challenge is you can't really imagine
Being
a
without
world.
war. Oh, you
Yeah.
know why? You know why?
I'm gonna go
Because-
out now real quick. You let me in the other one, okay?
All right. Well, we'll see you later.
Switch me
It's
out.
because
All
everyone's
right,
at war
you've
with
been
themselves.
removed from the stage. Well, sorry, Jerk. What'd you say?
I said it's because everyone's at war with themselves. That's why they can't imagine a world without war. That's like unfathomable.
Yeah. Hey guys, I had an insight too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make a self-perfected X account, and it's just literally gonna be used for a live stream, and then randomly to
Okay.
troll people.
Wow.
Because then
brilliant.
we could just say, hey, go on the self-perfected X, and then it will just be live there, and then I don't
Wow.
have to
Look at
real
that.
time be distracted.
That's
We
some
can just
pretty
dive
good-
straight into it.
This is forward thinking.
Real time innovation.
See-
I should be a fucking sci-fi author.
That's the kind of insights you get when you read the Asimov books in order. So,
Well, I
think of all the-
I
think of all
was,
the
so I already
insights
got
you're
that
gonna miss.
download. Now
Think
I'm
of all-
experimental.
I
Cameron.
think of all the ones you're gonna miss out on if you just continue.
Well, okay. Here's my rationale. Right, I know at a certain point,
Yeah.
Aristotle's going to want to read them at like bedtime, and so I'll just read them all to him then. I'm trying to get a sneak peek into the future, so I know where it's headed.
that would be like listen, I'm gonna watch the third Harry Potter book,
Dude,
because
Harry
eventually
Potter all around just
I'll
is not that
watch the
cool.
first Harry
Okay,
Potter.
Why is it that you want to read Foundation?
Literally just because it's like this. it seems like it's iconic in our culture, and they like made movies on it or the Apple show on it. Elon's talking about it, and those robot ones were just. I was just like, I just felt like I was dying when I was reading it.
I actually
Why, Drake? Why do you think Elon said that? I didn't know he said that about Foundation. I had no
What'd he
idea. Mitch,
specifically,
It was something along the lines of like, if you haven't read Foundation, if you haven't understood the Foundation series, you're not going to understand what's going on right now.
Yeah,
It was something like that. It was some potentially just offhand comment.
do you know what the
Who knows? Maybe it was fucking high with Joe
no,
Rogan.
but okay, but hang on.
What was
but
the
hang on.
context?
I think he was talking to either Lex Friedman or someone.
But it has to. It has to.
It was more kind of like the end time. I think it was more of the vibe of like the end time, the collapse of civilization or something.
Because Elon wants to go to Mars or whatever. But think about in the Foundation series, the importance of the robots before you get to the Foundation series. Even I'm talking about like DG Bailey. You know what I'm talking about?
Bailey.
Lige Bailey? You talking about Lige?
DG Bailey.
DG Bailey. Yeah.
That a person?
Huh?
A person?
Yeah, it's a person.
You mean
Yeah.
Lige Bailey, the detective?
No, I
That's
don't
in, like,
know
all the
Lige
books?
Bailey.
Oh, look at you calling him Lige like you know him.
Oh my god! So the whole time he's a fucking robot?
Like he's not a robot. Like he's your best friend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I
He's been a
spent
long
all of
time.
Caves of Steel reading about it.
Okay, but okay.
Then his
Here-
wife totally sucked. I'm just like,
DG Bailey, just to give you context, Cam, DG Bailey is Gloria, whatever her name is. It's Gloria, right?
Yeah.
He meets Gloria.
Glad. Anyways,
Gladiola.
dude, it's been a long time since I read it.
I know. But he meets
In the Foundation
Gloria,
series? No, not in the
whatever.
Foundation series.
no, it's not the Foundation series.
Okay, that's why I'm confused.
But it's like leading up to the Foundation series.
Okay.
Right? I think that's significant in what Elon's trying to do with Mars. Should I just
I'd have to look it up. Well, I mean, you can't really. Here's the thing: there are some parts you can spoil technically. Like I would say, like I could think of like 2 or 3, but overall, there's so much that happens in that series. Like
Here, I'll say this. There is a part in, I guess, there's a part in the robot series before you get to Foundation where they're debating basically, hey, what's better for us to colonize these planets with robots, which, some planets have been colonized with robots, or for us to colonize them with humans, and some planets have been colonized with humans, right? And so they're like, which route should we go? What's better for our society, for humanity? Should we let the robots go, terraform the planet, and then us humans come in, or should humans be going out and finding planets that are suitable,
right,
and seeing who can survive and whatnot, and then we colonize those.
But then the
planets
problem is, but then there's like the debate over if the robots go out, it like creates a sort of different culture than if the humans do, and
Right.
it's like part of the whole. I just looked it up. DG, he's like one of the main guys in the book. For some reason I was thinking he had a different name. I don't know why, but yeah, he's like one of the main guys. The guy who like comes back and I don't know why.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting? I mean, this is the whole reason that we talk about this stuff anyway. It's like real time. This is literally what Elon is pushing for every fucking day. Go to Mars.
But I think
millions,
it's important to understand that part of the conversation, to understand, like, I guess all the things that Elon's bringing up. You know what's weird though? Kind of like what Katie was saying, where that author gets interviewed and like he doesn't seem to know what the book was about himself. I feel that way about a lot of these guys who bring up these books. Like I was listening to Tony Robbins was on Patrick Bet David, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to him and he started bringing up like all these books, and I've read some of these books. He's like, yeah, I read 700 books in 7 years. That's like part of his story, part of his formation or whatever. And a couple of the books that he brings up, I'm like, I've read those books. That is not like the takeaway that I got from that book. You know, like okay, here's a good example. What's that one book? The one that everybody always talks about. Jordan Peterson always talks about it. Man's Search for Meaning. You ever read that book?
Oh, the Viktor
I've
Frankl
never
one.
actually read.
Yeah,
that.
Viktor Frankl. It
That's
is
a
not.
science fiction.
I don't
No,
know if you could
historical
call it
fiction.
science.
Historical fiction.
Speculative fiction. Sorry, no, I'm probably thinking of another book, allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah. When I read that book, it is not. I don't get the same thing that like all these high thinkers get out of
Yeah,
it. I
what he's
yeah, I
saying
see
is
what
like
you're
your
saying.
words are important and you can always find good in everything. That was basically Tony's takeaway, right?
From Viktor Frankl's
Yeah,
thing.
Man's
Man's
he
Search for
like
Meaning.
always brings it up. Yeah,
What
Yeah,
was his
it-
takeaway that you got from it?
His
What was
takeaway
his
that
take-
I got from it was basically like that when you, I don't remember exactly what he said, but
Well, no
what I
wonder
got
it
from-
didn't make sense.
no, Drake.
I don't know
What was
what the
your
fuck he was
takeaway,
saying.
Drake?
What was your takeaway of
I'm
Tony
a
Robbins'
thousand
takeaway?
times more interested in Drake's takeaway than Tony Robbins' takeaway. Okay,
I'll tell you what my takeaway from it was. Because when I read it, I was like, first of all, I have a hard time. I just have a hard time getting into the character, you know? I know it's a autobiography, I guess, or I don't know, whatever it's called, right? But I have a hard time identifying with the main character in this book. And the other thing is, I feel like it is I think it's one of those books where it's like you say this and then you're accepted into the club. Like you're supposed to venerate this thing, even though it doesn't really matter that much. You know what I mean? It would be like, I don't know. Okay, like how a lot of people are into The Office. You ever watch The Office, Mitch?
bro, that's probably my most
Where
watched
you're
TV
going.
show.
I don't get it.
I'm half kidding, but I've definitely watched The Office.
No, I think there are just some things out there that are like, people say like, oh yeah, it was the best, it's the greatest. Like, I don't know, people who are into football, I don't get it really. Like,
Yeah.
Or
I
like
play
the
football.
Beatles or something.
Yeah, okay,
Okay,
the
yeah.
Beatles, like that's something I never understood. You know, I was like, this
Okay, yeah.
music is not very good. But see, The Office, the reason I like it is because at least back in the day when I would watch it, guaranteed I would laugh out loud twice per episode. So it's like a very
Yes.
easy
Yeah,
way.
we know
you
about
I'm-
your laugh-o-meter.
Yeah, your laugh.
I'm a simple man.
barometer. Just
Yeah. I'm a very simple man. If I know I can get guaranteed 2 laughing out loud in about 24 minutes, however long an episode is,
Like
worth
this,
it for
this
me.
episode, I get 2.5
Only
laughs.
Mitch would
That's
have,
like
like, a
that's like
spreadsheet, all
like
of
if
his,
Jess
like-
is gonna make food, I know like roughly, you know, my like flavor points I'm gonna get. It's like if anything has chocolate or chocolate chips in it, guaranteed at the least it's gonna be a 7, probably
Anything.
an 8.
Okay,
Anything. Steak,
quick
chocolate.
question.
Chocolate
Okay.
steak.
Steak would be a separate category.
If you had to choose, if you were going to have some kind of a, okay, so I have to be careful about this. Like, well, maybe I shouldn't qualify too much.
What is Cameron
Cinnamon-
gonna say? Drop in the comments.
Cinnamon sugar, chocolate.
Chocolate.
Typically chocolate, but I definitely can appreciate a good like cinnamon sugar like roll or like a donut, like a cinnamon sugar donut could be really good as well.
Say that word again.
Yeah, what was that word?
Donut? What do you call it? Fucking donut?
Donut.
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 Hurts, don't it?
We got to get back to foundation, man.
Okay.
We got way off on a tangent over here.
How do you guys say donut? Because you must be saying it wrong.
Donut.
Nut.
Donut.
Donut.
Donut. D-O-N-U-T. Okay, it's not D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T. That was back in the fucking 1800s there, Cameron.
Okay, like if I was saying, hey, that makes sense, don't it?
Well, I don't
That's
say
how
that.
you say donut.
We don't say that up north where I'm from, all right? Wow. I this is like the 12th time I've been targeted for my accent on this. You know, I always thought I just talked normal.
Not from around here.
Um,
He ain't from around here.
Yeah.
So we were.
So
I'm
anyway,
gonna try
yeah.
to keep us on track here. We were talking about Tony Robbins and the Viktor Frankl thing and all that, and yeah, I totally see what you mean. It's one of those things where it's just supposed to be like accepted as a great thing that, you know, it's like when I tried to read War and Peace, and I was like, fuck this, you know, and I was just like, the whole first chapter, you're like, dude, I can't. Man, this is like, can't get into it. It's just boring.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Like the Bible.
It's like the
Like-
Bible.
Whoa, wait, were you reading King James with all
You're
the
supposed to read it.
extreme
Hold
language?
on. The Bible, you're supposed to read it and have this takeaway of like, oh yeah, God is just so benevolent. And he loves me and like everybody, and he's just such a great God. And then like, meanwhile,
Takes, like,
literally,
1,200 pages to even get that remote idea.
dude, the first 1,200 pages, he's just like smiting everybody. You're gay. You're dead. You're like, you're an abomination. No, no.
You should threaten to sacrifice your first child for me.
Hey,
Right,
but
right.
this is exactly the point we're talking about. Maybe we should coin a phrase for this. Like it's like you're reading the thing and acting like it's this other thing, and then it's totally not the thing that you think it is. It's
That's
like
what
that's
I'm
like the
trying to
Bible.
say.
man.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's what I'm
There's gonna be
trying to
work
say.
for this. Yeah.
It just took me a while to get there, and I needed your help. Thanks.
Well,
But-
it would be like, yeah, I mean, when you develop your processing speed and you can actually comprehend
It's like when
things.
people read the New Testament and then they're like, they got all
Oh.
this information out of it, and I'm like, I don't get the same thing that you're getting from it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's this message of hope and salvation and all this stuff, and I'm like, I feel like you're reading a lot into it.
I feel like
I don't
someone
think it
gave you
actually
this
says
idea.
most of them.
I feel like somebody gave you this idea, and you're just like,
Right, it's like the
"Yeah,
sermon
I
from the
agree.
pastor.
I have to agree. So let me just whatever I take in, that's the output that I'm gonna get.
Yeah, it has to be like framed for you.
Mhm.
You know, it has to be like framed in a certain way, and then like, oh yeah, you get that, and like, yeah, it makes no sense. So, anyways, the point is, you should read the rest of the robot books. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, wait,
Right,
hang
will.
on.
I'll
hang
get to
on.
it. I'm
Uh,
jumping around a little.
I got a thing to share. I got a thing to share.
It's like the weave.
Okay,
I-
but that
I-
being
I weave
said,
with the
nobody
weave.
said you had no one. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't say this, but overall, really, no one says that you have to read them in order.
Facts. Okay.
So-
We see
Oh,
this.
you already got me on. All right, sweet. Okay, let me just.
Yeah, Drake, you have like special privileges. Cameron's like
in
kind of
his work,
censored,
and
so
I'll
we have
give
to
you
always approve him.
all of my research.
Okay, can you hear it?
We can. Can you start from the beginning though, and give us for anyone who's just hearing this? So this guy is like an ex-CIA dude, right? And he was just on. Patrick
Yeah,
Bet
I don't
David
know who
and
this
Danny
guy
Jones.
is, but it was relevant to what we were talking about with the whole.
in his work, and I'll give you all of my research on it, and then the CIA, without even attributing anything to him, copied it almost word for word in an interrogation manual, and I have that PDF too.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
I feel like I know who he's talking about here, even though it was cut off.
And then the grandfather of hypnotherapy, Milton Erickson, started writing about it. So being able to speak confusing phrases helps you to be more persuasive. They discovered this in the 50s and 60s that if I can confuse your brain acts as though someone it's somebody that's falling. So if you imagine when you're falling, your limbs are flailing all over the place, and the first solid object that they come into contact with, it's going to like grab around it no matter what, even if it's a thorn bush or something.
Okay.
Right. So anything that's solid in that moment of confusion is going to get grabbed onto. So the brain corollary to this is if a person's confused, the first logical piece of information they hear after being confused will be automatically accepted, or more automatically accepted, without being screened or scrutinized by the brain. This makes sense?
Yeah.
So
how, like, practically, how would this be used?
I feel like we just saw it happen in
if
real
you
time.
spoke a confusing phrase very confidently and then told somebody to just completely open up right afterward, you're gonna lower a whole lot of defenses for any technique you want to use afterward. So that's a basic way to say that. So an example would be, and you know that this is a confusing statement, but if we're in a conversation and I'm speaking in a really confident way, and I said something like, How different would it be if the same thing started looking now like it wouldn't change if nothing else really did? And you could just get completely open. So getting good
we just
at
deciphered
those
Kamala Harris's
statements,
strategy.
and the one that I just said out loud is very effective. And
It's hilarious.
Straight up.
Yeah. Dude, okay. So, but that's like the average person knows they have not read these books. And then even when they go to read the books, it's like just a confusing mess for a lot of people. And then they come out of it and like, but meanwhile, you have all these famous people saying, that's the book. That book is this, that. Dude, actually, you know where they do that in? That's
Church?
part of why I had this insight. Yes, not just church, but in The Fountainhead, right? In that book, they talk about specifically putting out garbage in publishing and making it popular. So everyone's repeating the same line about it, but nobody actually understands that it's just garbage, except for the people who published it.
Yeah.
Right. And they're doing that on purpose to manipulate people. And I'm like, that's what I see with like certain books, or with the way that people talk about books, is like, this is the insight you're supposed to have from this. So go along with it if you want to be a part of the club. And if you don't, then you're out, basically.
Yeah, I think also the bigger way this plays out is if you look at our education system, you go through it, you're exposed to all these words, like because you take biology, chemistry, math, science, whatever, history, you take all these things, you memorize them, you don't really understand them. And then later when those words are used, it's like, so it's not the same technique, but it's kind of the same point where it's like a bunch of words that you didn't really understand are being used. So you're kind of like, okay. And then when a directive is given, you follow it.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because they're like bringing up like virus, pandemic, like all these words. And then whatever comes after that, because you're like, you're going into an emotional state about it. I know it's not exactly the same thing this guy was saying, because even with that guy, it's like, you can't do it artificially. You can't be like, okay, now I'm going to show you an example and then do it. And then it like makes sense. So it's hard for him to explain it to where you see the effect of it, but you could see it. I mean, I see it in so many ways. I mean, religion and spirituality, all of it, because they say a bunch of stuff that you don't really understand, but then there's something that you're trying to be sold or whatever at some point, or you're trying to get them to do something at some point. So they got all this stuff, and then the one thing they actually want you to do, you see what I'm saying?
It's just like, oh yeah, this affects your mitochondria. And like the only thing that anybody ever knows about mitochondria is it's the powerhouse of the cell. So it's like, okay, yeah. Oh, it affects the powerhouse of my cell. That's all you take away from it. Like you don't understand how it's affecting the mitochondria. You don't even know what the mitochondria does. You know, like it's just the powerhouse of the cell. This must be important. You know?
Yeah.
We got to come up with a word for this. It's like the tactical confusion that people can use to get, people to be, kind of like he's saying, right, drop their guard. What I thought of right away was, I mean, maybe I'm biased because I studied psychology and got my degree in it, so I know about it. But it's like Piaget's theory of development, right, for kids. So it's like inherently it's like taking that idea that a parent can have a relationship with their kid and like understand what their kid needs, and automatically outsourcing it to like, no, these psychologists know the theory of development for your kids, in between this age and this age, they're in the formation stage or whatever, and they give all these, it's the word salad thing to it,
Okay, would we accept that we should follow 99% or even 100% or 99% or 90%, like mostly all of the information they knew about childhood development in 1700? I think everyone would say no. What about 1800? They would say no. What about 1900? They would say no. What about 1950? They'd be like, well, no, there's still a lot. So at what point do we know everything about it and we should just follow it? Or is it just people coming up with theories like
that sound good in the moment?
Sound good, and they're just sold, right, based on limited understanding. And so it's like, yeah, that's it. But then it turns out later, that wasn't it. That's always
all-
going to be the case.
Yeah, it's also like you realize that most people have no fucking clue what they're doing. You know, they don't actually give it any sort of real thought either. And so they're looking, you know what it is? Okay, here's the other thing. Like the guy describes in that that video or that podcast, he's like, you know, your mind is like falling and it grasps onto the first thing that makes logical sense. It's like that's the situation that most of society is put in. You're put into survival and like figure this shit out. There you go.
You're brought
And
up
then-
into an energetic high,
Yeah.
and then that's taken away from you.
Yeah.
And then you're going to a negative, and you're like, whatever will make me feel good, like whatever will make me feel safe, secure, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
That's how politicians operate, man. That's how
And
that's how
Well, that term non sequitur. Remember the first time I learned that, and I was like, "Oh, that's what they're doing," you know. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, I'll read the technical definition. It's a conclusion or statement that does not logically follow from the previous argument or statement. But then the Wikipedia entry is a little bit more thorough. It says a non sequitur is a conversational literary device often used for comedic purposes. I don't know if I'd agree with that per se, but it says it's something that, because of the apparent lack of meaning relative to what preceded it, seems absurd. But it's more of that thing where, yeah, you hear a politician, they'll say a bunch of stuff and then they'll jump to something else, but just that they speak with certainty, you go into a state of confusion. So you automatically see them as an authority. That's the actual outcome that happens from it, right? So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you see this in religion as well.
Totally. Anything
know?
where there's an authority. You know?
Well, okay, like I sent you guys a post. I was an X post, and I was saying, like, look at the comments. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
You want me
okay.
to find that right now?
If you want to, yeah, if you want to pull it up, I could talk about it while
I'll try.
But it was, if I recall correctly, it was about like the fires. And I mean, we haven't even talked about. Did we talk about that last week? I don't even know if it was going on last week.
Okay.
No, it
okay,
wasn't.
okay. Let me.
Every
just
week there's
kind
at
of-
least
kind of catch
3
you up to
things
date on everything that we have.
Yeah.
There's still some H-1B visa stuff going on over here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's some George Soros stuff. Sam Altman's coming out with some stuff. That Pennsylvania guy.
Dude, wait, hang
Um,
on. Did y'all see that picture? One of the guys, I forget his name, but he won one of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And there's a picture of him with that guy, Ryan Ruth, the guy who did the second assassination.
yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's right.
And then did y'all see that image too of, I think they're at Jimmy Carter's funeral, and you have Obama talking to Trump,
Yeah,
and they're
that's
just
in
like
here.
shooting the shit.
Yep. Justin Trudeau resigning as prime
Yeah.
minister is also in here. There's
And
so
for-
much.
for Prime
Oh yeah,
Minister,
that
and-
happened. I guess he's not really out yet, though, right? It's like he's waiting.
No, it's
until
like
they
90
elect
days.
somebody.
They have to do some sort of vote for the Liberal Party so they can put in their other guy who's even more of a WEF stooge. Like Christine was telling me about him last night. She's like, yeah, this guy's on the board of climate change this, climate change that, climate.
Are you talking about the guy that's going to replace Trudeau on
Yes.
the Liberal Party?
Yes.
Okay.
Do they get to potentially vote him out though, as well? Like, so
Well, then
that
they would
different
have an
party-
election at some point.
They,
Right?
yeah, they're going to have an election, but yeah.
That's
basically-
crazy that they can just resign and they can just vote some new person in.
Dude,
you
imagine
didn't vote
Biden
for,
just
that you
resigns and then Kamala's in.
No, not even
Yeah.
that. Not even that. He resigns, and then the Democrat Congress people get together and vote in somebody. Or like,
True. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know exactly who has to vote, but it's like, yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I've got I forgot what I was looking for actually. Oh, Dana White and Facebook. Oh man, there's just so much. Nvidia.
Oh yeah, all the CES stuff going on.
Yeah, the what's it called? The Ian Carroll thing with Elon Musk. There's
Oh,
so
that was
much.
pretty epic.
There's so much.
Yeah.
Some prison officer in the UK made some sort of tape, and
I don't care about that.
I don't even know why she was. There was a gender reveal.
There must
on
have been a reason I sent that though.
I think it was in connection with the other kid. The kid
I
who's
think-
like,
I think it was just the point of like, because the woman's like, from the perspective of who
Hot.
should be working in a prison. Yeah, she's like an attractive woman.
She's not. She should not be in a prison.
And I'm like, why is that person allowed to be a guard in a men's prison? Why is she
should
even
be-
having to work if we look at things from a big picture perspective, but also like, so it's just the whole thing. Like she's recording a tape with I don't know. I don't care about all those details. Just like, why is she even in that position? Makes no sense. And that, that's connected. Wait, were you going to say that's connected to the kid on the bus?
Yeah. No,
That's
not
crazy.
The kid on the
Oh.
bus. What?
What were you going to say? It's connected to something. Did I send y'all that one? The one
You
who's
said
going to
that
prison?
one. I didn't know why you said that one.
Same point. Like, why is that woman taking care of this kid? Like,
True.
do they not
Okay.
have some like IQ test? And like, it's like, okay, we can put that woman in. Okay, so this woman, she was taking care of some special needs kid on a bus and like didn't strap him in properly. Or didn't hear when the kid was like sliding down in their seat. And I guess they like basically can't really move or anything. I don't know. They have cerebral palsy or something, whatever.
Yeah.
And so like the kid was, I guess, sliding down and then like choked to death on the harness or something. And the woman was just on her phone the whole time, like not paying attention. And that's why the kid died. And I'm not sitting here going like, oh, this poor woman, like we should be sympathizing. I don't care about that. It's more just the point of, we're going to put her in prison for 20 years. And then like they're showing her being grilled in like the trial, like you were on Instagram and all this stuff. And I'm like, what did any of you fucking people been doing all the past year to make sure that something like that wouldn't happen?
Dude.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like look
Totally-
at the
yeah,
system we
it's
have
a totally
in place that would
reactive
allow
system.
some just dumbass, typical dumb woman to take care of this kid. And then also, why the fuck is that kid going to school?
Yes. Yes.
What?
Also,
like,
okay.
or any, like just be with the parents. Like it makes
Think-
none of it makes any sense.
Think about this. How is it that our society is so willing to take an individual and like persecute them for their negligence?
Right.
Meanwhile, like we're literally sitting here while all of Malaysia or Haiti or name your country is like starving, and we're just over here
Yeah.
like scrolling,
Yeah.
watching concerts, festivals,
Or even to bring it back to the example of that woman, is there anyone in any position that could have prevented this from happening? If they had focused on it, if they had put any focus on it, could they have potentially prevented it?
If they
And-
focus on it and plan ahead, yeah.
for sure.
Maybe not. Maybe we should figure out. But like, why isn't any focus being put on that? And why isn't that person being also prosecuted or being held accountable? And it's like, but to your point from the bigger picture, it's like, okay, so we're gonna hold this dumb woman who shouldn't even be allowed to. Someone's negligent for putting that child in her care in the first place because they didn't do any due diligence to be able to predict that she could have done that. Like they didn't sit with her for an hour and be like, all right, let's just observe what she does in this 1 hour. Could have done that, but no, money is too important. So we don't have the time and resources to do that, to properly, hey, she passed a background check. She doesn't have any history of criminal background. So it's like, that's not going to tell you if she's going to do stupid shit later with a child who needs like constant attention. And then no one else is getting blamed. And we're like, we're going to put all these resources and manpower and intellectual power into proving why this woman should go to prison for it and nothing else about anything else. And then on top of all that, all the other points you brought up of like, I mean, go look at fucking Philippines and there's people like literally living in poverty you can't even imagine. And then we go to the fires and all that shit happening in LA, which is just insane.
Yeah, you got those fires, and then there's a footage of other people seeing that. It seems like people are adding to the fire as well.
Yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? It's
Because it was really weird that you had Andrew Huberman, who was like taking his own self. It was like a video from his phone. He's narrating it. He's like, "Hey, there's people literally over here starting a fire. We called the fire dispatch, whatever, and like no one's coming." And that was really weird too, because it's like
weird.
Huberman's kind of like a celebrity figure nowadays.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But I mean, it's not surprising that there'd be celebrities out there taking video in that particular area. So I hear your point,
yeah.
but also
For sure, but-
here's again, like, so we had this whole talk last week about like things are so post-ironic psyop-y.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you
you
can't
can't
tell
even-
what's the psyop and what's not the psyop, and what's the psyop on
Right,
top of the
right.
psyop. You know,
Well, and
so
it reminds me of because I mean I saw firsthand here in Minneapolis, right? You had all the riots and everything after George Floyd, and I remember listening to, I think it was like Jocko or one of these Navy SEALs giving his take on it. He's like, if you don't think that Iran, China, and these other adversaries of the U.S., you don't think that they have people in America that are going to stoke that chaos? He's like, you're a fool. Like, of course, our adversary countries are going to have people in here too that are going to want to just sow seeds of chaos, basically. It's like, oh, maybe that's, part of what it is too. And I mean, who cares? You can
So
speculate.
you're
all day
saying
on
that the Chinese Communist Party hired Chilean gang members to start fires in LA?
that. Well,
No, I but you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
but at the same time, are we doing that in other countries?
Oh, for sure.
Of course.
100%.
Like, is
That's
there like
the
some
power
crazy
game.
shit
That's
going
the
on?
power
And we've got
game.
like people that I don't know, man. It's crazy.
It's really it's insane.
And then you've got all the levels of conspiracy theory around the fires, where everyone's like, I see people saying, "I'm getting Maui vibes from this," and I'm like, "What does that even mean? What are you implying? That it's like some kind of some
mean
direct energy weapon? Like,
Oh, I thought that was just like Mountain Dew's new branding,
oh, they should do that.
right?
They should definitely do like some kind of direct energy
fire
weapon.
flavor, spicy Mountain Dew. Did you guys like drinking
and it's
Mountain Dew when you were
blue,
kids?
and it's blue.
Yeah, I actually I liked Mountain Dew when I was a child. That was my favorite one.
The blue one.
No, I remember when they did those new flavors. The ice blue one was pretty good. Yeah,
I
just
think they had
classic
a
Mountain
red
Dew.
one that was decent.
They did
Yeah,
have
Code
that
Red.
one. Code
That
Red,
was
Code Red.
decent. Oh, my stomach just churned when I said that though. It was definitely not best.
I like how they call it
you
code
lied.
red, like warning, disaster. Get on alert, and you're like every day drinking. Got to get my code red. You know, like, code red. You're like, I'm activated. Where do I go? What? You're like suddenly you don't know. You're just like chugging Mountain Dews, like heading. You're like getting into a Tesla. You're like heading to Palisades, and then you're like pouring gasoline on fires and shit. You're like, what am I doing? You're like, the Mountain Dew made me do it.
Just do it.
That's it.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. But these fires are insane. It's like
Dude, it's totally crazy. Oh, okay.
really crazy.
So that leads us to the point we were talking about with the post, right?
Yeah.
This post was, it was a clip of somebody showing like them talking shit about God at the Oscars,
Oh, is that what it
or
was?
whatever thing is
'Cause
going
I
on.
only
or
have
what's going on.
I have the post. I'll just share what I have.
Wait, what? Yeah, I don't know how the Oscars ties into this.
I think it was the Oscars. It was the Hollywood Awards.
Mm.
Are you pulling it up?
Yeah, I am, but I
Okay.
don't know what button I pressed.
The modern Babylonian cult
That
of
was-
entertainment.
What the hell?
That's how I refer to Hollywood.
Oh man, you know when you pull up a whatever.
You know when you pull up your Chrome and there's 300 tabs.
So that's definitely not the one.
That's not the one.
You're going back to some other thing we were talking about.
I thought you
talking
were
about
Autism
saying
Capital
this
has
one.
definitely got to be run by Elon's friend.
Okay, wait. What were you talking about?
We're talking about the fires and Hollywood and all that.
Oh,
Drake, how you got so many notifications? Damn.
notifications?
You got 20 plus. You just never click them?
No.
Dude, I get excited if I get one notification.
Yeah, I get one. I'm clicking. I'm like, who's, then it's just
Drake's
like
literally like some freaking famous like influencer.
Dude, maybe that's Drake.
I'll never be able to match what Drake can do.
Okay, wait. You were talking about something at the.
I'll just explain it. So there was a
Explain it.
post of somebody posting or clipping like them at the Oscars or whatever the thing that was just happening where they're doing the Hollywood Awards, and something about making jokes about God, or I don't know, like I don't remember the exact context, but then showing the fires being like, is it a coincidence, right, that like all their houses are burning up or something? And
I didn't see
people
this.
are like, God shall not be mocked and all this stuff, right? And then I'm like, but Mel Gibson's house burned down.
But after that one, they pray and they're like, "Thank you, God, for a new beginning." You know, it's like you can justify it in any which way.
It's so exactly. It makes no. I'm like, okay, so hold on. Let's just back up for a second. Okay,
Wait,
just
is
to
Mel
make sure I'm
Gibson-
I
clear
don't
on
think
the
these
logic.
people care about making sense.
Is
I,
Mel
like,
If
Gibson
you
like
mock
a-
God, if like God is so insecure that if you mock him, if you don't recognize him, he's gonna burn down thousands of homes. I don't even know what the number is. I mean, it's like insane. Just because they create all the Hollywood shit, right? Because they're satanic, and I guess you mocked them. Like, it wasn't enough that for 100 years, I don't know, they've been brainwashing everybody. He couldn't have just burned it down before.
Yeah.
But hey, this one time they got up there and made some kind of irrelevant comments about, I mean, they wasn't like fuck God or something. It was just like, I don't remember what it was. It's on the clip, but it wasn't anything that crazy.
yeah.
It's like, it'd be like if you went and killed somebody versus you were like, yeah, I think people should die. And then like for that, you got punished. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
what are you? So God's going to burn down. And then also, what about, do you think any animals died in that fire?
many.
Dude,
No.
I'm tons. Like, I'm squirrels. I don't know. Like crickets.
Horses at the ranches.
You think the
I saw
the
videos
squirrels
of-
were also mocking God?
I mean, what's the logic there? Like, but here's my point. Like Mel Gibson's house burned down while he was on the Joe Rogan
Rogan.
podcast. While he announced he was going to make the sequel to the Passion of the
Passion
Christ
of the
movie.
Christ.
So like you would think God would be like, as a
Spare
sign to show everything, I'm going to spare your house, and he didn't even spare his house. Like, so what's the logic here?
There's no logic.
What is the
and that's-
logic?
that's the
It
point.
has nothing to
It's
do with.
literally just that emotional thing you were talking about. Yeah.
I think
It
the
makes no
logic.
sense. It's like
Because
God wins, guys. God wins. God
No.
don't. He will not be mocked.
God just does not fuck with Hollywood at all. Period. Full stop. Just does
Yeah,
not.
he's
fuck with
allowed Hollywood for 100 years.
No,
That's
no,
the thing.
stop.
That's the
Stop.
thing that makes no sense.
Jake's
No
triggered.
sense. I'm
Real
gonna see if I
time.
can find it real quick. But I also
never
watched.
saw
I
it.
mean, I also watched like this. Here, I'll do this one for you guys. Where'd it go? Not RazzleCon.
Oh no. Please,
That was my
no.
first time I ever heard of RazzleCon.
I'd never heard of it either. It just showed up in my feed. But I'm
I
like,
looked in the
oh, this is
comments.
gonna be like where things are going, huh?
I looked in the comments to see
Uh-huh.
like what did she do that she's going to jail?
Oh yeah,
Apparently she stole like $4.5 billion or something like that. But there was no context to it. It just said, when she stole $4.5 billion, I was like, what?
yeah. I saw some mugshot stuff. I don't know.
Is she a celebrity? Is she?
I
A
have no
singer?
idea who she is.
Dude, I don't know. It
But
was just a
she's
weird
like
music
going to
video.
jail and she made a music video. That was the little. I didn't even watch the music video. I was like,
Only reason I knew about the jail things because like in the video they zoom in on her like ankle tracker tag thing, and there's this. Anyways,
that's a way to make a music video.
there's nothing. The significance I saw with that video, if you go watch it, just look up RazzleCon, and it's basically like this girl
Oh.
kind of doing a music video, sort of rapping in front of like, was it the White House or something?
Like
And
Supreme
then she's
Court.
wearing like, fishnet sort of things, and when she turns around, it's like you can see her ass, and she's like bending over and doing all this like talking underneath her ass, almost like Ace Ventura style, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like it's got all the elements of like the perfect like Gen Z. I don't know how to describe the aesthetic, where it's like
Okay, yeah.
it's not trying to be cool. It's like almost trying to be like not cool, but it's ironic. I don't know. I just saw it as like this sort of real
Post irony.
clear embodiment of sort of like the new wave of entertainment and stuff. Here, but let me show you this thing. I'm gonna switch it up.
Yeah,
A little bit
and then you have that in front of like an iconic landmark, like whatever, if it's the Supreme Court or White House or whatever,
She's in DC.
And then you have all the boomers that are like, they're defiling our sacred icons,
Yeah.
our sacred Masonic satanic
Yeah.
symbols.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't
We went to
know
the
about that.
moon. I'm like, she did a full moon in front of the. Okay, I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna switch up the emotions on you guys.
Ooh, all right.
We can switch it up. We can switch
Did
it
y'all
up.
see this?
We can switch it.
Hang on.
We can switch it.
Every time you try and share, I have to approve it.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't actually.
We can't hear
Can you
it.
turn it up?
You can't hear it?
Turn it up. Turn it
She's
up.
she's
It's
either
a-
mumbling.
Did the floors, and we put in windows and doors and painted, and just put. My grandchildren loved it. My son and my daughter-in-law, my family. We hosted Christmas Eve and Christmas Day here, and everybody was here. My little house that I loved. My husband.
So she's clearly very emotional and kind of rambling and stuff, but like
Passed away, and they took.
I'm just saying, like, this is like the reality of what's going on there. Could y'all see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then people going like, God shall not be mocked. Okay, so because fucking Hollywood said some shit, like that woman's house burned down where like her kids loved it and da 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 da. You know, I don't know. She could be some fucking evil woman. I don't know her, but regardless, like you think like every single person there like deserved it because it's like
We got a super chat.
Hey.
Gibson's exposing the Pope.
God doesn't
Yeah.
like that. That's what it was.
Yeah. That was a really interesting conversation because I've never actually heard Mel Gibson like talk outside of him just being in movies. And I watched Apocalypse.
You never heard him talk about the Jews?
Well, I remember hearing he like I never heard him actually talk about it, but I saw he had this whole uproar about him. And then there's
Remember
these, you know,
back
this,
then, yeah, like how long ago was that?
That was like a decade ago or
yeah, he was
more.
talking about it
Back
before
then, it was kind of like,
popular.
Like he just seemed like a
he was
really
just
angry
painted to be
person.
crazy, right?
yeah,
Yes.
like oh, he's like anti-Semitic, like oh, this
Yeah,
guy.
like,
now
oh,
it's like no,
He must have been
one
like
gives a
drunk or
shit.
something.
Like no one
Yeah.
gives a shit
Yeah.
about that at all.
Yeah. So
But he
I
was
wanted
probably
to
one
actually
of
like
the OGs.
listen.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to like listen to him because I'm like, oh, he's got a lot of he's a super popular guy. So I listened to that podcast and it was really weird. It was really weird to hear him just be so brainwashed by the Christianity thing and like totally just justifying, you know, because Joe Rogan's like, hey, how do you explain these like Neanderthals and stuff, you know? And Mel Gibson's like, you know, I heard carbon dating is like a scam. You know, humans have been around for probably 8,000 years. You know, and he just couldn't hear Joe Rogan was like kind of pushing back on him. You know, of like, so you mean to tell me God just made humans 8,000 years ago and like all of this other stuff is just out the window? He's like, yeah, and then he just changed the subject. So okay,
Well, it's Mel Gibson. Like, you know what's funny is like sometimes Joe Rogan
that
pushes
actually
back
does.
on his guests, but it's mostly the guests that he has like some sort of like clout over, or like, you know, like they're coming on his show to get
Yeah.
out there and stuff like that. Versus like, you know, like Mel Gibson is like, I'm already a fucking movie star, movie director. Like, there's nothing that you can really do for me other than like help me get this message out, which I could easily just, well, not easily, but perhaps go to somebody else and get this message out. You know, it's like,
yeah.
how
The
much
vibe
pushback
it
can you
was
really do.
it wasn't a confrontational vibe at all, but it was interesting to see that. And now, so Mel Gibson, do you guys know about this new movie he's like making?
The Passion 2?
The resurrection one.
The resurrection
Something
one.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, that is like so. I knew he made Passion of the Christ. I never saw it, but so this new one that's
did.
coming out soon. I think he's in the middle of kind of like writing it or whatever. It's like a full on. He described it. He's like, yeah, it's like it's almost like an acid trip. Like it's going to be this super crazy, like throughout history, the battle of good and evil, and the angels and the demons, and then what Jesus represented, and like that is going to be crazy when that comes out. Because you're gonna have the people that just buy it hook, line, and sinker, and that will be like
None of this makes any sense. Like, okay,
It
first of all,
doesn't.
him
That's so
questioning the Neanderthals, I'm all down for that.
Well,
The
actually, no,
Neanderthals,
I have a
carbon dating. I don't care about any of that shit. But
well, I mean, if you read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's really clear Neanderthals were the original like humans on this planet that, you know, were supposed to be here, and then like the Homo sapien was just like some alien species that came here from somewhere else that was like kind of being actually, you know what's funny? He says like they were being shipped off to some random planet so that they wouldn't bother the people on the planet they were from. And they could get trapped here and not know how to get back.
yeah, maybe they took the Neanderthals and genetically modified them to make Homo sapiens. But in anyways, what was I saying?
Well,
Yeah, so I don't care about
with the
any of that.
new
Like
movie.
that to me is the least.
You're more concerned about this zombie movie that Mel Gibson's making.
No, it's like the whole idea of the battle of good and evil makes no sense. Because man, one day I'm going to figure out how to articulate this, because if I'm saying it and people aren't like agreeing, then I must not be articulating it properly. You know what I mean? So somehow I got to get this across, and maybe I just haven't fully seen all the details yet, but it's like, how can God be all good and then there be evil?
Because that part is not God.
Even though we say
And then
there
there,
everything.
hold on, just let me continue. Okay. And then there has to be this long battle over it. Of which now, so now I'm talking from the perspective of someone who buys into it. Okay. So there's this long battle between the good and the evil. And we know in the end, God's going to win. So what that means is there's no way the evil can prevail. Okay.
Teacher,
Yes.
how do we know that God wins in the end?
Hold on. That's just part of what we know. Okay. It makes it make less sense, actually, if God wins in the end. Because if God wins in the end, why doesn't he just win at any point? I'm sure it's almost
He's got to like
question,
charge up his
teacher.
character. He's got to like God's got to learn his lessons too, you know.
Well, I didn't even mean it like that. I didn't even mean like, why is he even losing any battles? I meant more like,
Why doesn't he just stop it right now?
it's like the Zeno's paradox thing, where it's like, okay, how does an arrow go from here to here if space is made up of an infinite number of points? How does it ever go from point A to point B if it has to move through an infinite number of points just to get to that? It can never actually get there, right? So it's like that. It's like, if God is all good and all powerful and he wins in the end, why isn't it already done? Why was there ever why wasn't it the moment evil appeared, God won? No, it's like, no, it's got to be this long. And then you have to have all this other stuff. Well, part of it is like a test of our faith. And then, okay, but how does that fit? It's almost like you're telling, okay, you've got Harry Potter, you've got Lord of the Rings, you got Star Wars, and you're kind of mixing them all up.
Mhm.
So at the point something doesn't make sense, you're like, oh yeah, you're over in Harry Potter land. You're like, oh yeah, but Leia is actually Luke Skywalker's brother, and you're like, what? How? You just jumped over here. Like, that's not part of what we're talking about over here, because you're trying to ignore this part of it. So, okay, if God does already won, why isn't it that we just don't even have any battle at all, ever? It's like, well, we have free choice. I'm like, hold on, you just jumped to Star Wars over here, because if we have free choice, then none of this has to do with God anyways. It's just us misusing our free choice.
Okay, so this is a really great opportunity to bring in that one tab I was trying to bring in before that wasn't
Okay.
relevant then, but it is relevant now.
It's totally irrelevant.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Thanks for that.
I was just trying to bring it back.
Thank you. Okay, so this one says, I don't know who
20
Alice
plus
Weidel
notifications.
is. Who's Alice Weidel?
Dude.
She's
Who
the
is that?
lesbian who's leading like the AfD party in Germany, the right wing party.
Okay. Okay. So she says, do you believe in God? Elon Musk says, I'm open to believing things proportionate to the information I receive. I have a physics view of reality. I'm trying to understand the universe as much as possible to figure out what's going on. I'm open to the idea of God. I suppose there could be some entity called God that made this, but that's a separate question from, is there some moral entity rendering verdict on what we do? I think that this part's really important here.
Yeah.
That doesn't appear to be the case. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such evil things we see going on. But these are my views based on what I see. And if I see something else, I will adjust my opinion. I have a philosophy of curiosity.
Yeah. So he's like, look, guys, if there was actually a God rendering judgment on anything, I wouldn't be a billionaire.
but like it's
He's like, I can just have as many kids as I want with as many women and just totally neglect them, and from the perspective of having a stable family and all that stuff,
Right.
and do whatever I want, and like I can make robots and I can make neural implants and do all this shit, and I can fucking buy the presidency if I want to, and no one's stopping me. There's no God.
so he says he's open to the idea of God, and like, oh yeah, there's probably some entity, maybe there's some entity called God that made this, right? That's what he says. But
What is this?
but this, like,
Reality.
what is what?
This tweet?
This week?
The
Yeah,
simulation.
He said that made this. I'm like, what is this?
This.
What is he referring to? Is this?
Yeah. Right. That's a good question. But that's a separate question from: is there some moral entity rendering verdict on what we do? And then everybody, when I was reading the comments, and I'm like, everyone is like, oh, the reason.
Oh,
we
yeah,
see
let's do it.
evil, sin and Satan neither disproves God. They're actually evidence for God. Okay, but he doesn't say that there's not God. He just says no one's interfering here.
The Bible explains all of this if people would take the time to read it. Dude, I read the Bible.
I have as well.
It did not explain it.
It did not.
Just because you can tell a story once upon a time doesn't mean you explained anything. You didn't explain it. Like, explain it means I'm saying to you, you're saying God is all powerful, omniscient, loves everybody, blah, 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 blah. He created us in his image and likeness, but we're flawed because we chose, because of free will, because we ate from the apple that we didn't even know what it was. And then that introduced sin. And now we have this long battle. And then God had to introduce his son to save us from our sin, even though nothing measurably changes on the earth. And then we're just going to die and go to heaven. And if we just believed in God, then we're going to be in heaven. Like,
none of that is in the Bible.
Did Adam and Eve believe in God in the first place? Let me ask you a question. Did they believe in God in the first place?
Oh, 100% they did. They knew him.
No, hold on. Was that explained? Did it even say that? Does it even say if they believed in God? So if they did, why did they sin in the first place? Well, they just fucked up. Okay, but God created them. If Elon Musk creates a self-driving car that crashes into a crowd of children, somebody's going to be blamed. Do you know what I mean? If it was like the driver's like, I didn't even touch the wheel, you said it was driving and it should do this, it's like they're going to blame Tesla or whoever created it. You can't be like, I mean, Elon's perfect, but the car is fucked up. Like, what can I say?
The car is
It's
evil.
the car's choice. Like, the car did it.
car-
And you're like, but you got created by this all-powerful, perfect thing. And then God can't even create a human being that can figure out why he shouldn't eat this apple. Okay, whether it's metaphorical or not, this point still stands. God can't even create something that's so perfect like him. Why are you trusting that God is going to fix all this shit in the end? And you're like, God wins. And it's like, is it based on he gets us to join him and like fight with him? No, because like, and then I see all these comments where people are like,
dude, look at all these comments. Look,
okay, let's just keep going.
Like, it's all these comments are just like trying to convince him that there is a God, and he's like, I'm not arguing if there is a God or not. Saying like, is he actually going to interfere or render judgment based on what we're doing here? Clearly,
let's look at the
not.
C.S. Lewis quote. Can you open that up?
This one.
That one, yeah.
My
argument against God.
Go ahead.
I'll read it. My argument against God was that the universe seems so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing this universe with when I called it unjust? If the whole show was bad and senseless from A to Z, so to speak, why did I, who was supposed to be part of the show, find myself in such violent reaction against it? Of course, I could have given up my idea of justice by saying it was nothing but a private idea of my own. But if I did that, then my argument against God collapsed too. For the argument depended on saying the world was really unjust, not simply that it did not happen to please my fancies. Thus, in the very act of trying to prove that God did not exist, in other words, that the whole reality was senseless, I found I was forced to assume that one part of reality, namely my idea of justice, was full of sense. Hold on. But you see how it's either God exists or everything's senseless.
Right.
Do you see how he's setting this up? And he's like,
it doesn't make sense.
You see how he said a bunch of word salad and then he brought in this like.
It actually doesn't make sense when you read it.
I mean, it makes sense, but if you don't question, if you're already making the same assumptions, like, look, I noticed that things are fucked up. And then
in order to notice that things are fucked up, then I would have to have
some
an
kind
idea
of way of measuring
what's
fucked up and what's not fucked up.
Therefore,
well, let me finish. Does he actually explain that? Thus, in the very act of trying to prove that God did not exist, in other words, that the whole of reality was senseless, which is not the same thing, I found I was forced to assume that one part of reality, namely my idea of justice, was full of sense. If the whole universe has no meaning, that's not what no God means, we should never have found out that it has no meaning. Just as if there were no light in the universe and therefore no creatures with eyes, we should have never known it was dark. Dark would be without meaning. Yeah. Okay, so just because there's no God doesn't mean things are meaningless.
Yeah. There's a lot of fallacies.
See,
in
so
this.
how would somebody argue against that who believes in God if they're trying to like uphold the idea of God? What would they say?
Well, I actually met somebody one time that was like, how would you know what right and wrong is if there weren't God?
I decide.
Well, where'd you get that idea from? God gave you that.
Where'd you get the idea of right from then, Gary?
Yeah, God gave you that idea. You wouldn't know otherwise.
Who gave God the idea?
Well, he's God.
So am I.
He's all powerful. You're not God.
I'm not all powerful.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying I'm all powerful. If God equals the ability to decide what's right and wrong for himself without anyone else to tell him, then I'm that.
No, but God is also all powerful, all knowing.
Yeah, I don't care about all that. That's irrelevant. That's not. You see what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah.
it's like he's saying if there's no God, then nothing makes things make sense. There's no final authority. That's actually what the argument is. The actual argument is unless there is but then here's the problem, little C.S. Lewis, little Clive Staples. Okay. Now you got to argue with Muslims.
Yeah, there you go.
And then you got to go, well, but okay, but also we're flawed and therefore salvation. And then they're like, no, just God, we just believe in God. Like, I don't need a savior because the idea of a savior is irrelevant, because if you believe you need a savior, guess what? You don't really believe in God.
Dang.
If you really believed in God and you really trusted him, you don't even need to be saved. You're the way you are. Things are the way they are. Don't question it. Why are you even? This is the problem. If you truly believed in God, you shouldn't even have a feeling that things are unjust. Think about that. Did God create everything? Yes or no?
Dude, okay. Hang on. Let me read this one. Supposing there was no intelligence behind the universe, no creative mind, in that case, nobody designed my brain for the purpose of thinking. It is merely that when the atoms inside my skull happen for physical or chemical reasons to arrange themselves in a certain way, this gives me, as a byproduct, the sensation I call thought. Let me just pause right there, because that assumption right there is kind of crazy to think. Like, okay, if, as an example,
Did God create computers?
right, but
Like,
but even simpler than that, if you give a dog some food and you ring a bell, Pavlov's dog, right? You ring the bell, you give the dog food, the dog salivates. Eventually, you just ring the bell, the dog salivates. That's literally what is happening. Like, oh, your little clump of cells or atoms or whatever go, oh, that's the reaction. That's the thing that we want. We're gonna react to that. Eventually, that's gonna form into, in our human brains, that forms into reason, because it's pattern recognition. Literally, like, that's what your brain does. It's crazy. Anyway,
yeah, I don't
continue.
see. Okay, but also, yeah, finish it and then we'll comment.
But if so, how can I trust my own thinking to be true? It's like upsetting a milk jug and hoping that the way it splashes itself will give you a map of London. That doesn't make sense. But if I can trust my own thinking, of course, I can't trust. If I can't trust my own thinking, of course, I can't trust the arguments leading to atheism, and therefore have no reason to be an atheist or anything else unless I believe in God. I cannot believe in thought. So I can never use thought to disbelieve in God. That does not make sense.
Well,
Is
hold
that
on.
word salad? Full circle.
The thing is, it all makes sense. If
You're
you
gonna have to
accept
explain it
the
to me.
assumptions,
Okay.
because again, he's saying, if there's no intelligence behind everything, then how can I assume my intelligence is truly intelligent? Unless there's an ultimate intelligence, that actually is truly intelligent, that designed my brain and my thinking and so forth, I can't trust my thinking. My thinking is just a random occurrence that was created by meaninglessness, and therefore it can't come to any conclusions. So that's the argument he's making. But the problem is you can't trust your thinking.
Okay, let me just show you how faulty. You're right. You can't trust your thinking. You're right.
Even if you believe in God, even if
Yeah.
God exists, you still can't trust your thinking. Clearly,
Yeah.
look at the fucking world.
Yeah, that I agree.
It's like, well, but the thoughts aren't aligned with God. Well, hold on. What about Muslims? What about Buddhists? Or not Buddhists, maybe they don't believe in God. But I mean, they still believe in God, don't they? They still believe in some kind of God-like principle.
Yeah.
I don't know. Throw them out the window. Like, look at Christians. Now look at Mormons, Seventh-day Adventists, Presbyterians, Lutherans, Methodists. Like, come on. Like, they all believe in God, and they all believe in Jesus even, and yet their thinking still leads them into different areas. So how does this argument make sense?
Let me just show you how faulty whoever posted this, their thinking is, their arguments.
Well, yeah.
Because he's putting
Literally
quotes
not
that
what he
say
said.
exactly. He's fighting for something that Elon already agreed with. He's like,
You know what it reminds me of? Remember when
What?
we were in like, where was it, Miami or wherever, and there was that Christian guy, and he was like, oh, you guys are acting like Christians don't want to do what's best for all. And I was like, well, they don't. Like, they don't. And he's
Yeah.
like, well, I do. And I'm like, okay, well, dude, I'm open to that. If you do, then but I really think the whole idea of Jesus and God and all that is just an excuse. Actually, it always becomes an excuse. But if you're telling me it's not an excuse, that's fine. And then, like, let's talk about it, right? And then it came down to the fact of he thought best for all just meant like donate to charity.
right.
Exactly.
Like, not question the system. Like, it wasn't. It's just like he fit it into his idea. And then, wait, why did I bring it up? Because
This guy's arguing with Elon about like, does God exist?
Oh, right. And the point was, when we started the conversation, I was like, okay, so I don't remember exactly what I asked him, but it was something kind of like, why do you? Oh, because I was like, the idea of God is always used as an excuse, right? And then he was like, he's like, I don't agree. And I was like, okay, you're not using an excuse. Like, show me that. Like, show me so I can understand. And then he was like, well, he started to prove to me that clearly everything couldn't have happened randomly. Like, there has to be a designer. And I'm like, dude, I'm not arguing with you that something designed everything. That doesn't prove that there's a God. Because when you say a God, you mean something way more than just somebody designed everything. That's so. In fact, you could have God, and this would actually make more sense. Let's say you have a God that is the God everyone believes in that didn't design anything. Wouldn't that make more sense? Like, that would make evil and so forth make even more sense. That literally all good we see, all evil we see, has nothing to do with God at all. Like, God isn't shaping anything. It's all the created things that are shaping it. That's how I see it. If you want to call something God, I think the better way to do that would just be to call it life and not attribute to it any sort of overall control of everything at all times. It's a principle. It is the reason why we exist rather than nothing existing. It is, by definition, always there. And by definition, it wants always what is best. But it's also able to act against, I don't know how to explain that. It's like you're still able to act against that. You could still go into fear. We just haven't learned to not be afraid of shit. And instead we create consequences because we have fear instead of just realizing who we are and then being like, oh, I'm life. Like, I'm alive. I'm life. I'm eternal. I don't need to fucking worry about it. It's like, well, but look at your body. It dies. It's like, yeah, who cares? Like, that's irrelevant actually, because I'm always alive. Life is always alive. And if I'm that, then why am I worried about it? The only reason I would worry about it is because I'm identifying with this very limited construct that exists in the whole of life. And
Yeah.
and if everything was, if you realize that, then it's like, okay, well, but you're saying that there's no good and bad. Like, people will just do evil. I'm like, well, they're already doing that. It doesn't disprove what I'm saying. That's already happening. You have the burden of proof to prove that there's an omniscient, omnipresent, all-powerful God who is all good only. You have the burden to prove why evil exists, not me, because what I'm saying is the reason evil exists because we just keep doing it. And we don't look at the ultimate long-term consequence. Like we're doing something stupidly instead of being like, it's like you're in a conversation with someone, okay? And let's just say the other person is kind of like not trying to fight with you, but you're just like, you're pissed off about something else and you're just trying to take it out on them. And eventually you have to realize, like, you know what? Why am I doing this? Why don't I just drop it and let's just have some fun? You know, it's like with the kids. Sometimes like they'll throw a tantrum because of something that happened earlier, and I have to just support them. Like, do you want to continue this point or do you want to just drop it and like, let's move on? And then they're like, yeah, okay. And then like, oh, now suddenly we're having fun. That's kind of where we're at with as humanity. We're literally just at a point where, and so the problem with God is that we're like, no, guys, it's not us. But it's also us. Well, which is it? Is it us or is it not us? Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the inherent contradiction I see within this whole God thing is like, on the one hand, when you're over in Harry Potter, you can argue it's us. But whenever you're here in Star Wars, it's nothing. I'm nothing. Like, it's only God. It's like, well, you can't have both. You can't have it's us and it's God. You can't have weird, like, and then I guess there's this level. Yeah. It's like two different worlds. Evil
Yeah.
exists because Satan, but can you align yourself as a human being with Satan? Yes. So does Satan actually do anything? Like, is Satan lighting the fires?
No, he can only get people to light the fires. People that agree with him.
Okay, let's just take it for a moment. Let's say there's some evil person who's out there lighting the fires. Let's just break it out. Why do you think they're doing it?
Clearly, there's something messed up in their head.
Or they're getting paid or something.
That's probably what it is. It's probably just somebody who, I'm just going to
Some
pretend
George
like it's a
Soros
gang.
funded NGO has a pool of money, and it's, you know.
Or maybe it's some gang
Hey,
member,
don't talk about my George Soros like that. He just won a congressional medal.
presidential
of
medal of, yeah, true.
Yeah,
Won the Medal of
so
Freedom.
that should be extra reason.
Freedom to
talk
start
about
fires.
it.
Only you can start forest fires. Isn't that what they taught us?
Yeah. Only you can.
No, only you
prevent
can
them.
prevent them. Only you can prevent consciousness.
Only you can prevent forest fires. If they're doing it, it's like I saw this thing. It came up in my X feed of, I should have sent it to you guys. It was like this woman. Okay, you remember how there was like TikTok houses?
Oh yeah.
I'm sure they still exist.
Yeah,
I think there's like OnlyFans houses.
Oh no
So what-
way!
it's like
oh wait.
It's
Actually,
like
though,
TikTok
You see what I'm trying to say?
influencers live together?
that does make sense though, because like,
Well, I'm only assuming that because in this video she was going and interviewing these women, and they were all in the same place, and they sort of had like, I don't want to say it was like a uniform, but they all had like, I don't remember if it was like pajamas or some kind of clothing, but it was clearly like a theme. You know what I mean? So like, even like they were like in the same environment is what it seemed like. So it's probably some house, right, where they're just like TikTok, right? I don't know if they're interacting together. Maybe they're doing crossovers. I don't know. Okay, but she was just asking him. She was wearing the same clothes, so it made me think like she was part of it too. But anyways, she was like asking him how much they made last month, right? And one of them said 6 million, which I don't know if that was she was serious or whatever. And then another one said 1 million. One of them said 100K. And so she was going around and like acting like she was jealous of like, oh my God, like, you know, I'm not making anything like that, right? And then I looked at the comments and somebody said, oh, they're just lying to get you angry, so you want to go look further, and you know, it's like engagement kind of farming or whatever.
Yeah.
But then somebody had posted one of the girls who's like the first girl in the clip, and her name was Sophie something. I can't remember. It was like Sophie. I can't remember what the other part was, but they had a picture. Well, hold on. Let me look it up. Sophie. I don't remember if it was PH or Sophie.
Sofia Vergara.
No, hold on. OnlyFans. Let me see if it comes up. Sophie Rain. Sophie Rain.
Oh, what?
I mean,
Hey,
everything
have
I'm
we-
seeing is confirming this point. Because somebody in that comment, somebody had posted a picture and it had her next to like some basketball NBA player
Mhm.
who made like 37 million a year, and it showed her making like 43.
Wow.
And they were right. And so I'm looking it up now, and apparently that is the case. Like she revealed that. So is it true? It says Sophie Rain revealed she made 43 million in her first year on OnlyFans. Now she claims that she's 20 years old. She claims that her top spender sent more than 4.7 million. So she showed like a clip of like her top spender. So one person alone sent her over almost $5 million.
What? Is it like some Arabian prince or something like that? That
I don't
Yeah.
know. But
pooping on her chest.
why did I bring that up? Oh, my train of thought was just, which I can't trust, according to C.S. Lewis. Here's the thing, though. If God, hold on. If God does exist,
Uh-huh.
you can trust your thinking, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
But that same thinking can lead you to think that God doesn't exist.
You can't trust that. That's wrong. You're not supposed to trust that.
Oh yeah, because it only makes sense if God exists.
I mean,
The
I can
thinking
see
can only be trusted if God exists.
I can see the kind of thinking behind that is like, this is the correct answer. So if you get the incorrect answer, then you clearly your thinking was wrong.
Yeah.
That's obviously the thinking behind it, right? So, but I think it's irrelevant, all of that stuff, actually. I mean,
it's just like it's all this complexity in the word salad when you can actually
Is it
look
word
at it.
salad? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to criticize your point. It's just like when people say it's word salad, it's like you're just saying random things.
No, okay, not word salad. It's more like a word appetizer. There's some sequence to it.
Charcuterie?
It's not random, but it's built on.
Amuse-bouche.
Okay, it would be like it's like an Impossible Burger. Okay, all
Dude,
the
is
ingredients are shit.
ChatGPT literally just word salad?
Yeah,
But
Isn't
because
but
there's
it comes together and it does make sense.
Hear me out.
there's like an algorithm to it.
Hear me out. But how do you know it makes sense what it's saying?
Well,
Because I read it, and it makes sense to me. I'm the one who decides that it makes sense.
Okay.
Does that
So
make sense?
okay, let me go back real quick. So the OnlyFans point was just like the girl's just doing it for money was my point.
Really?
And in the comments, people were like, you
I
know,
thought she was gonna like put on a resume or something.
I thought
people like
I thought
she's these girls are just prostitutes. Like this is terrible. They shouldn't. It should be. Oh, because the original post, that's what it was. It was like it should be illegal for women to make this much money on OnlyFans. That was the comment. And some people were like, who do you think's paying them all the money? Like it should be illegal for guys to send them. And I'm like, it's all just about money.
Wait. You know, okay, I have
So
this
where is the
idea.
point where it's Satan doing it?
I was thinking about this. Actually, specifically this OnlyFans point, right? How like, what is it, like 80 million guys watch OnlyFans or are paying into this or whatever, and there's like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 million women doing this, right? I was thinking, and hear me out on this. I think it's a great idea. What if all the guys in society paid into like a pot for all the women, and all the women could just like, automatically get their fair share of this money, and they don't have to take off any of their clothes publicly at all. They don't have to like demean themselves. They could just like actually have money to live off of.
How about just instead of the guys doing that, we just like reinvent how the Federal Reserve does it? And
Well, hold
then
on.
Everyone just gets enough money.
Okay, let's look at this point. Okay, because we're all men here. We all understand the male impulses. Why is it that men? Because what you said makes sense, Drake. But that's not like the guys want to see the porn and the pictures and the videos and all this stuff, right?
I know that
So why do they want to see it? Is the question.
because they don't see it at home.
Create that in their own life. They don't know how to create an effective
Trying to
relationship.
create it in your own life, like that'd be like, oh, I drink alcohol every night because I don't create the feeling of being drunk every night at home. I go out to
Well,
the
no.
bar.
Well,
drunk.
it's more they're
It's like,
chasing
are
the
you going to
money.
get an OnlyFans model? Like is it the same thing?
Yeah, no, it's a different thing. It's that chase of the high. That's really what it is.
Mm.
It's
Oh, that's
people
a
want the
great
energy
point.
experience.
Because my thought was, well, you know, the guys just they want to see like this thing that they otherwise can't see, and it's like I don't know. It's just like it's like a desire to see this woman naked or whatever. Okay, fine, but it doesn't really explain still. Then why do they want that? Why? And it really just comes down to what. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they want that like thrill of like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, and you can't stop me from doing this, and you're
Yeah, I
like,
think it's probably a
That
combination.
might be
of
part of
multiple
it.
points. Yeah,
That may be part of it, but the root of it is some feeling they're getting from it.
yeah,
right?
obviously,
It's
yeah.
like it's just this feeling, because somebody could look at like okay, someone who's like a furry. You know what I'm talking about, where they dress up in the animal clothes, and I don't know if they do sexual stuff or if it's just they just wear the clothes or whatever. You know, I'm usually like, I don't understand that. That's crazy or whatever. And it's like, well, it just gives them a feeling
You know who the ultimate furry
feeling
is?
they're getting out of it in whatever context.
Ultimate furry, Ace Ventura.
What do you mean?
When he comes out of that rhino's ass.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
I mean,
I never saw you.
it's my Ace Ventura 2.
Jim Carrey
Uh-huh.
is in a rhino,
Yeah.
and then he gets like born out of the ass, and like they're
Okay.
like
Yeah, yeah.
recording him on Safari.
Yeah.
The ultimate furry, right there.
I guess.
Yeah, why is that movie a thing? You know, why
Ace
did
Ventura.
Well, I
Hollywood
didn't
burn
really
down?
like.
you
I
know?
didn't really like it. I didn't really like Pet Detective 2.
What?
I don't know, dude. I think Jim Carrey
Yeah.
is just fucking.
When he gets the guano,
Yeah. It just
Yeah.
didn't compare to the first one, I guess. I don't know. But
Yeah,
anyways,
it's
it
so
didn't
interesting.
give the
because-
feeling I was looking for.
I don't remember the first or the second one. I don't know. I didn't know there was two. I just thought it's just
They all merge as one.
it's all the same movie to me.
Okay.
So
Um,
it's so interesting because a lot of the stuff that these religious people make these arguments for, of like, oh, it's Satan is behind the scenes pulling these strings, and you know he has an influence, but he takes people's minds over or whatever. And then you got God on the other side is, oh, all the goodness must come from God. It's like that whole mirage. In actuality, it's just this is us doing it to ourselves. And that thing that the Christians call Satan is actually just us when we choose to go after feelings over creating what would actually be best in physical reality. And then you got the whole God impulse of like, well, if there wasn't God, you know, we wouldn't know what good is or whatever. It's like, no, actually, you as the individual, as part of this whole fabric of reality, you get to educate yourself and adopt the principles you live by, and then you can choose to direct yourself. So it's like the whole religion thing is just this like weird counterfeit map of reality placed on top of everything that keeps people trapped and participating in a bunch of bullshit instead of just sorting out
Yeah.
reality.
Okay, here's the point on the God thing too. On the C.S. Lewis thing. His argument is that if there is no God, which it would be like the ultimate intelligent being that designed our mind, and that guy doesn't exist, therefore we can't trust that our reasoning faculties are effective. Right?
Okay.
Because otherwise, like, it could just be like just random shit happening.
It's just random particles.
It's
bumping
just
into
random.
each other.
It was just like random conclusions, and you don't know
Somehow
if they're
we
logical
come
or
to
not.
conclusions based on that. Yeah.
And so I'm trying to address the point earlier. So he's like, therefore, you have to believe your reasoning process has to lead you to God, because otherwise it can't make sense, right?
Because otherwise, where does reason come from? But that
Okay,
that is
but-
so. Yeah.
but that conclusion.
That
How do you-
conclusion
Uh-huh.
means that physics does not exist.
That's what I'm trying to say.
But okay.
You're like,
but-
if I go with B, it leads to a logical contradiction. So I have to go with A. But my point is this: how do you know that reasoning is valid?
that's what I'm saying though. Is that like okay? What I'm saying is, if you go with that conclusion of the only way that reason can exist is if there's God, which, yeah, how would you know that that's valid anyway? But then if that's the only way, then what you're also implying is that when things heat up, they don't expand. Because that would just be random. And the only way that that could happen is if God exists. and
Okay,
puts
yeah,
some
I see what
structure
you're
in it.
saying.
Like, you know, like that doesn't fucking make sense. Like, it's
Yeah,
so...
but I guess my point was just
and I'm making that point because he's making the point that your reason just comes from random particles bumping together if God does not exist. But it's like, look, there's actual physics
okay.
where you heat something up, it expands. Ergo,
Yeah.
you know, that's going to have an effect on
And that's
how
an
these
actual
cells
effect
actually
in
interact.
reality.
There's
Yeah.
structure in reality already,
Yeah.
guy.
So how does if it's all just randomly things happen? Yeah. It's like I can't imagine. Okay, here's what it actually comes down to, because here's the actual argument that they're not saying, because the conclusions they're coming to don't make sense. If things don't happen randomly, you can't explain any physics at all. You would have to say that God has his hand in everything, or you would have why does God have to exist for heat to work? Is what you're saying.
Right.
For coherence within our physical reality, why does God have to exist to make the logic of physical interactions work?
And
Yeah.
Because he's
It-
trying to
it-
use the
it's-
argument that it's based on reason. Like if
Right.
reason can't make sense if there's no God, but it's just random. But it's like, but you're trying to act like randomness in itself doesn't produce any kind of order, which it clearly does. We could assume it does, and therefore we don't need the God.
Even looking at this point, because Elon's not saying there's no God, and we're not saying that there's no like creator or of this reality. We're not saying that. Like, it's the thing is, all these people are making this argument. Like, these people arguing are so retarded
Well,
because
yeah.
they think
Yeah.
that by saying, "Hey, there's nobody sitting there going, this is right, that's wrong, and you know, I'm judging all of you right now, and you know, I'm gonna influence this and influence that." No one's doing that. That's really clear. That should be very, 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 very obvious to everyone.
Okay. There's a fear. The fear is that if we admit there's no God, that
If there's nobody doing that.
Yeah, if there's nobody who ultimately can say this is good, this is bad, okay, then the fear, I think, is that then people will just do all bad stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because there won't be any like, oh, there's a consequence for this, right? But okay, there's like so many points to connect. But right now, there are people doing that. There are people who reject that God exists, or even I'm sure there's some people who believe God exists and believe that he is the moral judge and still do evil things.
Oh yeah.
So you have to explain. You have to explain those things. I'm
Hispanic
sure C.S.
gang
Lewis has
members.
a whole fucking volume of books trying to explain it. Right?
Hispanic gang members in spades. They are very religious, very super religious, and they're like, "No, God exists. He's watching me right now, and I'm sorry I have to do this though." You know,
what does that tell you right there, just on itself? It's like it's more about the money system and education and so forth, rather than whether you believe in God. Because look, they just like, look, I'm doing all these things, but I believe in God, and then I just pray he forgives me because I'm so flawed. How is that different than the argument of people saying like, well, no, and here's the argument. I see all the time where they're like, you can't do anything to earn your way to heaven. It's faith alone, right? That was the whole anti-Catholic movement, right? The whole Lutheran thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's faith alone. And then it's like, well, so you can just do whatever you want. They're like, well, no, because if you truly did know God was real and so forth, like you would show that in the way you act.
Right.
But what if you didn't?
And how would you know?
And like, if it's like, if you I guess the argument is that if you truly knew, if you truly believed, okay, if you sincerely believed that you were going to be punished for doing evil things, then you wouldn't do them. And so again, it just comes back to my point. The fear is that if we don't accept God, then we will do a bunch of evil shit. But the thing that we're trying to get at is the idea of consequence, right?
Yeah.
Is if people don't believe in God, then they'll think they can get away with things eternally that are evil. And if they don't recognize God, they don't realize, like, hey, you're going to have to answer at some point for these things, right?
Yeah.
But we don't believe in God. I mean, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I know. But I'm just trying to say, like, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the God that C.S. Lewis is talking about. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm down with the version that Elon Musk is talking about. Actually, no, I'm not. Because, again, you can't call that entity God. Right? If when Elon says, I'm okay with there being like an entity called God that created all this, like, it's like, well, but that's not the God anyone's talking about, dude. Like,
Right.
that's just, let's just say you're okay with the idea that there's some kind of advanced entity that can create computers and simulations and shit, and I don't know, whatever. Right? Okay. What was I going to say about that though?
You're bringing in the point.
You
of
don't believe in God.
Consequence, right?
Okay.
So we need God for there to be consequence so people won't be evil eternally. But what if you just got everyone to realize, even though there's no God, there's still a consequence to us doing things that are not best? You see what I'm saying? And then
can you just like repeat
that
super
you
clear?
are as life eternal, and you're going to have to face the consequence at some point. And it's got nothing to do with whether, because again, the reason I always keep bringing this in is because it's so obvious to me that ironically, when you accept God, you actually allow more evil than otherwise would be allowed. Because then you go, but God's going to take care of it.
Right.
Because the only people who aren't going to do the evil shit is, guess what? The people who believe in God. And not even all of them, but let's say every single person who believed in God didn't do the evil shit. How do they stop the other people from doing the evil shit? Because those people are evil. They don't give a fuck. And they'll work together. And they'll be ambitious and they'll be powerful and they'll create money systems that fucking the people who are the good people who believe in God will be a victim to. And so it's like, actually, this is the reality of C.S. Lewis. He's just fucking working in service of the fucking elite, whether he realized it or not.
Yeah.
He was using his intellectual prowess to get everyone to think like, well, guys, if there was no God, how would we know what's right and wrong? But again, I don't know if I made this point really effectively or not. Maybe I did. But if you're saying my reason can't lead me to the conclusion that there's no God, because if it did, then there'd be nothing that tells me reason is valid. But how do you know that reasoning process you're using is valid? Like your meta reasoning process. Do you see what I'm trying to say? The reasoning process that this leads to a contradiction is incorrect versus this doesn't lead to a contradiction equals it's a valid conclusion. You can't say it's God because God's a part of your argument it's a part of that argument. So if you go outside and you critique the argument itself, you can't bring in God as and my point I'm trying to get at is at the end of the day, you actually have to trust yourself as to whether what you're and your ability to see, does this make sense or does this not make sense?
Yeah.
It's not God. Because even if it is, you still having to trust it. It's like if somebody said, I had an experience with God. Like he visited me in my dreams and told me, trust me, there's a plan. You have to like assassinate somebody or whatever. And you're like, wow, but that doesn't seem like God would say that. Yeah. You know, and somebody else says, well, that's clearly not from God. But it's like, well, how do you know?
Right.
Like, what criteria are you using to know if something is of God or not of God? You can't use the Bible.
Yeah.
Because even if you say, well, thou shalt not kill. But did people kill on behalf of God in the Bible?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Okay.
Yeah. So clearly that can't be, because like clearly there's justifications and you're like, well, I mean, but okay. So you're telling me if a guy was coming in here to rape your daughter and he had a gun and he's like, I'm going to rape your daughter and you're going to have to kill me to stop me. You're saying thou shalt not kill. So, can't do it. You wouldn't kill him.
Yeah.
Like he's threatening to kill you, and then he said, "I'm going to kill your daughter afterwards." Like, what, you're just going to sit there because thou shalt not? No, clearly you wouldn't. But then
Right.
you're going to have to be like, well, but that's probably just like, okay, would you have to go? Well, hold on a second. Let me get my Bible out. Okay, so it says in that situation, God said it's okay. Okay, all right. Do you really need that? Do you really
Right.
need to go to the Bible and make sure it says, oh yeah, in that situation, it says in the Bible that's something God would approve of? Like, do
Right.
you need, or can you use your own reasoning and know God would approve of me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to that Bernard quote. It's like to assess consequence. That ability, like that is the ultimate ability. Because you see the consequence in our fucking faces every day now. Like it's accelerating and it's going to keep accelerating. And so at some point everyone has to face it of saying, okay, how am I co-creating this consequence with reality? And then you got to do the re-education process for yourself, you know?
Yeah, and it has to be based on principles that are best for all, because otherwise you're just
It's
going to get
literally
lost in
the
all these
only way.
opinions. Like, is it ever going to come to any real conclusion of Islam versus Christianity versus Judaism versus whatever else?
The only possible conclusion is to drop that and bring it back to the principle of what's
Yeah,
best for all.
because otherwise the conclusion is some kind of Armageddon. Like, read the books.
Yeah.
That's like actually that's our point, isn't it? Because we're like, how is Elon Musk reading the Culture series? And
And coming
because the
to
whole
this
reason I
conclusion.
read it in the first place was he was like, in an interview, he said it was like the best example he's seen in sci-fi of like the future of humanity in like the positive sense, right? And I was just like,
Right.
oh, interesting. Okay, let's see what it is. And I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, next one. Okay, next one. Like, when is it getting to that part? And Katie's read a lot
Right.
more of them, and she's like, it doesn't get to that part. She's
Right.
like, I feel like he didn't really understand them. I don't know. Like, maybe he read a paragraph of one of them one time, and then it was like, oh, that's cool. But like, but if you think about what Elon Musk's actually doing, creating
Yeah.
electric cars and AI and fucking Neuralinks and shit, all of that's in there.
Yeah, the machines.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like constant war, weird ass like abusive shit. Like, there's nothing where it's like, and then we're all in harmony, and there's none of that actually at all.
Yeah.
It's actually dystopian, even though it's not written as dystopian.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with all the religious texts. It's like it's the same point, man. It's like I'm using this text to guide what I'm doing, but I'm lying, whether consciously or unconsciously, that in my text it says it's going to create a world of peace and harmony.
Right.
So I'm justified in following what this is. But if you actually read the text,
It does
that's
say
not
that.
in there at
Yeah.
all, ever.
Right.
Like, even the point about Jesus and all this stuff, like, if you took Revelation, like a lot of people do, as just some literal prediction of what's going to happen, none of that makes any sense.
Right.
You might as well just fucking give up now, because like it doesn't make any sense. There's no like peaceful conclusion to any of it, unless you're just like, oh yeah, but you know, there's this big war and there's nuclear Armageddon and all this crazy shit and plagues and all this stuff, and then at the end it's just happily ever after, and you're like, wait, where's that part? Oh, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
So it seems like the idea that God justifies is needed to justify reason. But then somehow after that point, we abandon all reason. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't apply the reasoning anymore, because we're like, so then it becomes just whatever I feel like justifying, because I started with the point of God as to justify my reasoning. My reasoning doesn't have to be questioned.
Yeah. As opposed to this, which I'll just show on the screen. I dropped it in here for everyone to see. I mean, most of us watching this know this. It's like this is the operating system that we can actually build on. And so is it going to take each individual having their house fucking burned down, you know, having actual consequence manifest in their face? Or can you see the common sense of this first and then decide to live in accordance with this. Because also when you live in accordance with this is like then life aligns itself with you. Well, it's as you. And that's where we can really create. You know?
Yeah.
I think we can end. I know because Mitch said you have to go at 11. I
In
know
a
you have a
couple
bunch of
minutes, yeah.
abs, but I mean,
Take your tabs.
I don't see a reason.
Yeah, I mean,
to just go through a bunch of tabs.
I think what people are starting to see, you know, with the fires, right? You see people like, oh, this looks like Armageddon or this looks like hell. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. This is the wake-up call, you know?
I do see it that way. Like, and this isn't about God's punishing anybody. It's just this is the natural consequence. Like, so it is happening to a lot of the elite people because unfortunately, as a consequence, not as a punishment from God, not as a reckoning from God, they are like Hollywood itself is pushing the whole fucking agenda on everybody all the time. That's keeping their brain locked into a certain idea of reality. That's what Hollywood is. And Hollywood's falling anyways. Like we're in the online era. That's why I sent you guys that RazzleCon or whatever. Because it's like, that's getting lots of views. Like no one cares about fucking Mel Gibson's new movie. Maybe some people will, but do you think 30 years from now, anybody's going to fucking watch movies in a theater? They're not.
Dude, no.
It's going to be all fucking AI anyway. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's a whole dying thing. But my point
in one
is,
more year, people will be able to just generate that exact
but
same
like
movie.
all the super fucking richest people in the world are now losing their possessions, their homes, everything. And again, that's not a God doing it. It's the consequence of what we're doing. And here's the point. Is it also hurting people that don't deserve it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is the point to see. Because if it was actually God, it would only hurt the ones that deserve it. But it's not only hurting the ones. It's like, so what does that tell you? Even if you're good and on the side of God, it doesn't stop you from getting fucked over by evil.
Yeah.
It clearly doesn't. Like, that's why fucking Notre Dame burned down. That's why Mel Gibson's house burned down, because it's not about God. It's not about some symbol that if I resonate with a symbol, then suddenly I'm protected. That is not how reality works. Actually, in our system, the way the system works is if you resonate with the symbol of inequality, you temporarily can use that to abuse people.
Yeah.
But then as we're seeing, it's not a sustainable system. So it's like, if anything, I think what people should take away from the fire thing is did it kill lots of animals? Did it probably hurt a lot of people who they're not associated with Hollywood directly. Like there's children there, right? It's hurting a lot of people. The fire that's spreading in our world because of the consequence is not going to spare anybody just because you're good.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not a
literally
divine punishment. It's a consequence of what we're creating.
Like it's as if you didn't clean your room and then there's all this debris about, and then like the debris causes a problem.
There's like rats in there and like weird mold growing and shit, and then it's making your brother sick and your dad and
right. But it's the same thing. It's like, oh, these forests weren't cleared. You know, there's all this little just dead logs. Trump was talking about this like just a few months ago.
And we don't need to know the fucking truth about the conspiracy to know money and self-interest and profit motive is why this is happening. You know what I mean? At every level, you don't have to even blame Gavin Newsom or anything. Like you just know at every level, all of the accumulation of all the decisions is what's creating all of this.
Yeah. Right. And what's interesting is, fire is this force that represents this, purification in a sense, but it's also extremely destructive. And I was looking at this yesterday. It's like you can do almost a controlled burn for yourself through doing self-forgiveness and walking your process. Because otherwise you're going to accumulate a bunch of shit and you're going to get distracted and all that. And then all of a sudden, boom, big fucking fire. And then there's serious consequence in your life. Instead of every single day doing the purification and doing that self-expansion, you got to do, really, it's in every breath. So that's really what we're impulsing and what we're here to represent is like, you can walk this process, be that correction for yourself, and then spread that to other people.
Like a fire.
Like a fire, exactly. All right, y'all. Well, get out there. We got to hang out this week, Friday night in the Facebook group. We got X Spaces, potentially. We haven't.
We haven't talked about it, but I'm sure we'll do that.
Yeah. And then, the Facebook group is popping, and then we'll have a X account for Self-Perfected. That'll be really
nice.
Cool. So, cool. And then we'll just live stream there. Cool.
All right, guys.
All right, y'all.
See you on the next one.
See ya.